Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are tuning in from. My name is Laura McNeil, Master Examiner and Exam Committee Chair for Sterling. Welcome everyone to the first session of the Sterling Core Values Leadership Series. This series will be held at the same time each Tuesday for the next 11 weeks in order to cover each of our 11 Sterling Core Values. A core value binds resources together in a common mindset, and this creates an organization's culture. Today's core value, visionary leadership, will be presented by Baldrige and Sterling Master Examiner Board Member John Keevan, Senior Vice President and President, Wellstar College. Before I turn it over to John for his 7-minute leadership brief, just want to advise that we will entertain questions for 5 to 7 minutes after John's presentation. Please submit your questions through chat and we will source them through there. Any questions that are not answered will be responded to on the floridasterling.com website. Look in the Learning and Development folder. You will find that the second subfolder is aligned to capture content from this Core Values Leadership Series, including the YouTube recording of these presentations. So at this time, I would like to introduce John Keevan.
Thanks, Laura. Excited to be here. Good afternoon, everybody, or wherever it is that you are in the world. I see some from Cairo. We appreciate you joining us. And I'm excited today to kick off what is a new series for Florida Sterling, where we're going to highlight in 7-minute recordings our Sterling core values. And today we're going to talk about visionary leadership. And it's important to remember that our Sterling criteria is built on these values. And that's intended to be embedded in the systematic processes that we develop and intended to yield results. So this series will be focused not on our criteria, but on those values that are behind the criteria. And what do they mean for each of us? And I'd like everybody that as we discuss visionary leadership today to keep two things in mind for me and really question yourself. One, objectively challenge yourself if you're setting a vision as a leader. And two, if you are setting that vision, is everyone clear on what the vision is and how to achieve it? So let's start with what it takes to be a visionary leader. To be a visionary leader, you must be confident. You have to be confident in several things. You have to know what you value. You have to know what inspires you as a leader, what motivates you and your team, and what encourages you to want to make a bold visionary statement. And then one of my favorite sayings is, don't lick from the lollipop of mediocrity. If you aren't setting lofty goals, then why not? You must trust yourself and never be afraid of the loftiness of your vision. Visionary leaders have no time to apologize for expecting greatness. And why does visionary leadership matter? Why do we need to be bold? It's for several reasons. One, it creates the right culture. And culture is always there in an organization, but is your culture intentional? Is it designed to meet the vision that you're setting as a leader? It also, visionary leadership helps us create focus on what is important. Prioritizing in a competing environment can be difficult. That vision helps us find our priorities. Our bold vision also helps us define our strategies. It sets the place to where we're going, and our strategies help us get there. Think of a boat going across the ocean. That bold vision sets that destination. Our strategies are the trajectory we're going to take to arrive at that destination. And then a bold vision ensures accountability because it all sets us on the same path to achieve the same great thing. And it helps provide a supportive environment when priorities are clear. So what does bold look like? And as Laura talked about, I'm the hospital president at Wellstar Paulding Hospital. And this is our bold statement. And it may be different for everyone, but at Paulding, we commit to being the best hospital in the country by being in the top 10% of all facilities in all that we do, including patient safety, customer engagement, and workforce engagement by the end of 2023. Now, Paulding is a 112-bed community hospital, but we openly state that we will be the best in the country, and we clearly explain how we will measure that and in what time frame. And the bold vision does take purpose, and I would argue that not one of our clinicians at Paulding went to school to improve patient experience from 83.4 to 88.7. I believe they went to make a difference. At Paulding, we openly talk about our why. And our why is to save lives. And as this graph shows, the healthcare industry is not always great at that. In fact, we are often the third leading cause of death, according to this study, which was done pre-COVID, because of errors. And so for us, our purpose is to save lives. And I personally share this statistic at new employee orientation and ask our team that's coming in if they're ready to not be mediocre. And if they do want to be mediocre, I ask that they please resign and go find somewhere else to work, because it's not going to work out for them at Paulding. We then live these out by setting expectations around the framework we're going to use. For us, that's the Florida Sterling criteria and the National Malcolm Baldrige criteria. And once we set that path and that framework, we all personally commit through a leadership letter that you can see in the middle that every one of our leaders signs, and I sign along with them. We frame that and put it in their office, and it's a reminder of what it means to lead at Paulding every single day. We also then lead in key areas that are important. For me, that's the the hospital safety huddle every day that I personally lead, because we want to be the best in the country with safety and quality. I also personally write a safety minute every week that we read. It's all about high reliability. Our leaders are also expected to round, to speak transparently with staff, to be open, and to ask our staff, how can we make things safer today? And the question is, does this work? I believe, yes, it absolutely does. Our bold vision, because we can objectively say that we're one of the best hospitals in the country, including being a 2020 Baldrige recipient, one of 2 hospitals named in 2020 as a National Baldrige recipient, receiving the Oglethorpe Award in 2019 as the first hospital in Georgia, being named by Newsweek as one of the best hospitals in the world, being named a Lantern recipient as the first adult ER in Georgia, and being in the top 10% or top 100 in the country of companies in employee engagement, just to name a few. And as we think about visionary leadership, I would argue that being visionary takes guts. It takes grand thinking, but most importantly, it takes work. Every day focusing on the steps we need to take in order to meet that bold vision. As a visionary leader, we must carry the flag of that vision. We absolutely can't lead from being behind a desk. With that, everyone, I appreciate you joining and look forward to taking any questions.
And thank you for all your insights. Very, very insightful. How do I know that I've adopted the right vision? How do I know that I'm being a visionary leader?
I think there's a couple of ways that you could look at that. One, is it stretching? Is it difficult to achieve? And is it something that the average can't do? Right. So for me, being a visionary leader would mean setting a stretch goal, a highly stretched goal. That's bold. And it's going to be different for every organization, I think, and every leader. But I think the commonality has to be, is it bold? Are we thinking forward? Or are we just trying to placehold where we're at?
Right, good perspective. And then I guess, if I could take that one step further, maybe even thinking about that whole systems approach, right? And making sure that you're checking in with your team, and like you said, at new hire orientation, really setting those expectations and checking in so everyone confirms that they're on the same journey as you and supporting the goal. So we did get one more question. This is an interesting question. How much time do you spend on a given day performing leadership duties, being a leader?
Great question. It depends on the day, and some days we get caught in meetings or other responsibility, but I would say on average I spend at least half the day doing what I would call leadership duties versus common kind of meetings or just moving things forward. And for us, we use something called Leader Standard Work. And so throughout the week, I set priority for those things that are important. So rounding, talking to staff, writing thank you notes, highlighting, being at safety huddle. And so that Leader Standard Works helps us prioritize. So I can look up at the end of the week and go, gosh, I haven't rounded this week. I've got to reprioritize my Friday to find 2 or 3 hours to go chat with the staff. And so that Leader Standard Work has really helped us. So as you move up in the organization and can get more out of the day to day, depending on your role, you certainly want to spend more time in that leadership space.
Got it. How would you define bold?
Ooh, that's a good one. For me, bold means I always talk about it as being the best. And I think I have to be really clear as we set that. Being the best isn't just for the sake of being the best. But in healthcare, we have for far too long been okay with being average. And if you remember the stats I put up, that means that 36 people die on average in every hospital in the country because of error. And so how do we boldly move past that? I think we boldly say that should never happen. Not one time. We should be a highly reliable industry. If we were an airline industry, right, we would be crashing a Boeing 747 full of passengers every 7 hours in this country for an entire year. That's how many people die in hospitals because of error. And so for me, being bold is saying no one, not one person, should that ever happen to, and making almost a moral ethical stance on we've got to get better.
Good approach. So this is an interesting one in regard to your position in the hospital, and it's very indicative of the times that we're in. Given all the pressures from COVID, how have you managed to keep your morale up within your workforce so that you can ensure a focus on the vision and the future of where the organization is heading?
Yeah, I think if there's ever been a year and a half that has tested any hospital's culture, it's certainly been the last year and a half. And we certainly had our challenges between staff burnout, extraordinarily high patient volumes, challenges in the community, vaccine mandates. We've had our challenges for sure. But what I will tell you is we, this past May, did our employee engagement survey. Paulding continued to be one of the best in the country and the highest hospital in WellStar. We also have had the lowest turnover and the highest retention of our clinical staff across the organization. I believe that goes back to the strong culture that we have that has allowed us to do that.
Very good. Well, thank you so much for your insights, John. If I could quickly summarize what you've covered today, it will go something like this. Be bold in setting a vision, role model, and communicate to your staff and your peers with confidence. I get it?
Absolutely. Nailed it.
As a reminder, I just want to remind everybody, please check in at floridasterling.com for additional content from today's session. Of course, the recording will be there as well. And if you've enjoyed today's session, please feel free to forward the registration link to others. Don't forget to tune in at the same time for next week's Sterling Core Value Leadership Series session. It will cover customer-focused excellence and feature Debbie Voss, Corporate VP of Quality Initiatives at Patient Care EMS. Thank you all for choosing to spend some time with us today, and thank you once again, John. Very insightful.
Thank you.